Shalom, Ann Herzberg, legal advisor to NGO Monitor.
Hi Yoni, thanks for having me.
So we're hearing the claims these days according to which Israel is guilty of war crimes. Is there any truth to this?
No, I do not think that Israel or the IDF, as a general matter, committed war crimes during the Gaza war last summer. Of course, in any situation of armed conflict, you have soldiers who have acted inappropriately or who may have engaged in criminal activity. That's in every armed conflict. And Israel has very robust investigation procedures in place to find out who those people are and if they have done something wrong to punish them. And the IDF has also mentioned that when they have been hearing in news reports or from other sources that they suspect inappropriate conduct took place, they have been investigating those reports, and they have many investigations underway. They've released the results of many investigations. But as an overall policy, do I think the IDF committed war crimes? Absolutely not.
So how do you deal in time of war with an enemy that uses children as human shields?
Well, it's very complicated, and I think that is a problem that the international community has just not dealt with adequately in the past decade or so since this has really become a problem, particularly for Israel because we have Hamas and Hezbollah that have really pioneered the practice. But it's not just a problem for Israel, it's a problem for the United States and for other NATO countries that are fighting around the world, where you have terror groups, armed militias, guerrilla forces that exploit the civilian population to carry out crimes and to engage in combat that doesn't comport with the rules of law, with the rules of armed conflict. And the problem with the international community and NGOs, particularly the ones that we cover here at our organization, is that they completely erase that context. And by doing so, they give support and impetus to Hamas and Hezbollah and other terror groups to continue to engage in the practice, because they know, Hamas knows, Hezbollah knows that they exploit the civilian population to fight, and inevitably civilians will get hurt or killed, and they get tremendous propaganda benefits from that. And they know that the NGOs will only be criticizing Israel, and that they essentially give a free pass to terror groups that engage in that activity. And so the real question is, does the international community want to stop this practice? Do they want to help civilians and increase civilian protection? And if that is something that they are truly interested in doing and genuinely want to do, then they need to start coming down much harder on these types of groups and actively combating it, rather than putting all the blame on Western governments like Israel that do the best they can to follow the rules of war.
So we're talking here about human rights organizations, NGOs, that assist the terror groups?
So I mentioned it a little bit in brief in my last answer, but yes, that's the case. There is a network of non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, that claim to be promoting human rights, and they get tremendous funding from European governments, from the European Union, from church organizations, hundreds of millions over the past decade, hundreds of millions of dollars and euros. And these organizations go around issuing glossy reports, publications, full-page ads in newspapers to essentially erase the context of terror, to accuse Israel falsely of war crimes. And they completely ignore how Hamas abuses the civilian population in Gaza itself, as well as how every way of fighting that Hamas engages in is a war crime, because they direct their attacks at the civilian population of Israel. And these NGOs erase that context. Often when they talk about casualty figures during the war, they're simply repeating information they got from Hamas. And they don't engage in independent verification. They claim to rely on field workers on the ground in Gaza, and yet they don't reveal who these people are. We have no idea who these people's connections are. And so their work not only helps, maybe it's not always intentional, but in effect, they are helping Hamas and the way that it fights, and in the way that it is essentially oppressing the people of Gaza.
What is your opinion regarding categorizing these anti-Israel campaigns as anti-Semitic?
So I wouldn't say in every case that these types of NGO publications and campaigns are motivated by anti-Semitism. A lot of it's motivated by post-colonial ideology or type of extreme, left ideology, Marxism. But there certainly is a number of cases where anti-Semitism has been the motivating force for these campaigns. For example, in the last war, there was a group of doctors that signed a letter accusing Israel of massacres and testing, experimental weapons on the Gazan population, other really crazy claims, and it was published in the UK medical journal The Lancet. Well, it turned out, based on our research, that some of the individuals who had authored this letter actually circulated a video of David Duke, who is a white supremacist and is probably the best-known anti-Semite in America. And in addition to circulating that video, one of the people circulated other highly anti-Semitic articles that basically blame the Jews and the Zionists for 9/11 and other really classic anti-Semitic themes. So that's a clear case where you have to say that anti-Semitism is the motivating factor for these people when they author these types of letters or publications. And certainly in some of the bigger NGOs like Human Rights Watch or Amnesty, we have seen a pattern of animus, certainly by Ken Roth, the executive director of Human Rights Watch, who has made inflammatory comments about Judaism. During the Lebanon War, he made some highly offensive comments. And at Amnesty International, at least two, perhaps more, of the researchers who are on the Israel desk were involved with the International Solidarity Movement, which basically provides people to serve as human shields for Palestinian terror groups, and also, as a practice, try to get in armed confrontations with the IDF. So these are the people that are writing the reports for Amnesty. Another researcher at Amnesty has compared Israel to ISIS. So when you have, these are the people that are writing the reports, and clearly they are motivated not by truth, not by finding out really what happened during a highly complex armed conflict situation. Of course, it's simply just propaganda, and unfortunately does appear to be motivated by anti-Semitism in several cases.
Ann Herzberg, NGO Monitor, thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, thanks very much for having me.